I told him I'm pregnant. And you know what he said? Get rid of it. Just like that.
Talk to him.
I'm fine. Just, I had a fight with my boyfriend.
Did he hurt you? Threaten you?
He said he would get rid of me.
But he was just...
Kiana Wells was 26 years old, grew up in Pritchard, northern part of Mobile County, Alabama. Worked as a manager at Ulta Beauty on Airport Boulevard. Lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment on Government Street. Called her mother every Sunday. Her mother said her daughter dreamed of family more than anything else in this world. Darius Crawford, 27 years old. Firefighter at Fire Station 11 since 2020. Married to Janelle. They had a 5-year-old daughter, Alea. Model family man. No legal troubles. Perfect picture. But in April 2024, Darius started a second life. And that life was named Kiana Wells. They met at a charity barbecue hosted by the fire department on April 20th at Langen Park. Kiana came with a friend from work. Darius was handing out stickers to kids. They talked. He asked for her phone number under the pretense of advice for his sister. He didn't have a sister. By May they were texting every day. By June meeting twice a week. Darius told Kiana he lived alone. That he'd recently gotten out of a complicated relationship. That he wasn't rushing into anything serious. But with her it was different. Kiana believed every word. Because Darius knew how to say exactly what needed to be heard. And because Kiana desperately wanted to believe she'd finally met someone who would stay. 6 months of secret meetings. He never invited her to his place. Always said there was renovation mess. They met at her apartment, in his car, at cheap motels on Old Highway 90. Never introduced her to friends. No joint photos. And Kiana, naive, in love, desperate to keep this man, didn't ask extra questions. Until mid-October, when she realized she was pregnant. Kiana took the test on October 12th. 2 lines. She sat on the bathroom floor crying, not from fear, but from happiness. She wanted a child. She wanted a family. And she thought Darius did too. She texted him, "We need to talk. Urgent." Darius responded 2 hours later, "Can't today. See you tomorrow." They met October 14th at her apartment. Kiana told him the news, holding the test in her hands. She was smiling. She thought he would hug her. Instead, Darius said one word, "No." For the next 15 minutes he told her this was a catastrophe. That he wasn't ready. That she needed to get rid of the baby. That if she didn't, he would disappear from her life. Kiana asked why he was reacting this way. Why he was talking to her like she was a problem to be solved. And that's when Darius told her the truth. He had a wife. He had a daughter. If his family found out, he would lose everything. His job, his house, his child. Then he left. Just got up and left. Leaving Kiana crying on the couch in an apartment that suddenly became the loneliest place in the world. Now remember this date, October 14th. Because from that moment, Darius Crawford understood that Kiana Wells was a threat. And he had 12 days to decide what to do about it. Over the next days, Kiana called him, texted, begged to talk. Darius ignored most messages. Sometimes replied briefly, "I need time." But Kiana wasn't going to get an abortion. She wanted this child. And she wanted Darius to be its father. On October 22nd, she wrote, "I'm keeping the baby. With you or without you. But you need to decide." An ultimatum. And Darius Crawford heard it exactly that way. On October 24th, Kiana made a mistake. She drove to his work. Without warning. Around 2 p.m. she parked at Fire Station 11 and texted, "I'm here. Come out." Darius was in the middle of his shift. He came out to her car, and his face wasn't just angry. It was cold. He told her to leave. Immediately. That she couldn't come to his work. That she was jeopardizing his career. Kiana tried to explain she just wanted to talk, but Darius cut her off mid-sentence. He said if she showed up here again, it was over. Forever. Then he turned and walked back into the building. And in the second-floor window stood Devin Turner. 29 years old, Darius's colleague. Worked at the same fire station for 3 years. Devin saw the entire scene. Saw the girl in the car. Saw Darius approach her, talk, and leave. Saw the girl sit for another 5 minutes, crying, then drive away. Devin said nothing then. But he remembered. Remembered that girl's face. And the white Tesla she came in. October 26th, 2024. Saturday. The last day of Kiana Wells' life. During the day, Kiana worked at Ulta. Regular shift. Her coworker would later tell police Kiana looked tired but nothing unusual. At 6 p.m., she finished work and drove home. At 7:30 p.m., she called her mother. Shonda Wells would tell detectives her daughter's voice sounded normal. They talked about plans for Sunday dinner. Kiana said she'd come around noon. Shonda asked if everything was okay. Kiana said yes. It was the last time her mother heard her daughter's voice. Around 8 p.m., Kiana had a fight with Darius. Phone records would later show he called her at 7:47 p.m. The conversation lasted 11 minutes. Kiana's neighbors, an elderly couple living downstairs, heard screaming. A woman's voice. Words were indistinct, but the emotion was clear: anger, pain, desperation. At 8:15 p.m., Kiana ran out of her apartment, got in her car, and drove away. She drove without a specific destination. Just drove. At some point, she stopped at a 24-hour convenience store parking lot on Old Shell Road. Time: 10:34 p.m. And there, in that car, in that parking lot, Kiana took out her phone and started a live stream on Instagram. The video lasts 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Kiana speaks to the camera, eyes red, face in tears. She tells her 347 followers that she just found out her boyfriend is married, that she's pregnant, that he wants her to get rid of the baby, that he threatened her, that she doesn't know what to do. Her voice breaks. She wipes her face with her hand, says she just wanted someone to know. In case something happens. In case something happens. Those words. Live. For hours before her death. At 10:47 p.m., two patrol officers approached the car, Jennings and Riley. They noticed a lone Tesla in an empty parking lot and decided to check. Kiana rolls down the window. Officer Jennings asks if everything's okay. Kiana, and this will haunt these officers for the rest of their careers, says she just had a fight with her boyfriend. That everything's fine. The officers write down the license plate number, advise her not to sit here too long, and leave. Standard domestic dispute. A dozen like this per night. If they had stayed 5 more minutes. If they had asked her boyfriend's name. If they had looked at the video she had just posted. If they had checked whether she had a restraining order or history of police calls. If they had done anything other than write down a plate number and leave, Kiana Wells might be alive. But they left. And 20 minutes later, Darius Crawford called her. Phone records show the call was made at 11:09 p.m., lasted 2 minutes 43 seconds. What exactly Darius said is unknown. But judging by what happened next, he apologized. Said he got heated. That he wanted to talk everything through. Asked to meet. Said he was near the Shell gas station on Government Street, 2 miles from her apartment. That they could talk calmly. That he wanted to fix everything. And Kiana, desperate, emotionally exhausted, clinging to any hope that the man she loved was still capable of good, drove to him. At 11:17 p.m., the Shell gas station surveillance camera captured a white Tesla Model 3 pulling into the lot. The car stops. A few seconds later, the passenger door opens, and a man in a dark hoodie and baseball cap gets in the car. Face not visible. The car sits for about a minute, then drives off toward Interstate 10. This is the last time Kiana Wells was seen alive. At 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before midnight, a surveillance camera at the container storage facility on Shelton Beach Road captured the Tesla entering the property. The facility had been abandoned, closed 2 years earlier after the company went bankrupt. The area was fenced, but the gate wasn't locked. The camera shows the car driving between 2 rows of containers and disappearing from view. 11 minutes later, the recording shows the figure of a man in black. He's walking quickly, almost running, toward the gate and disappears into the darkness. Face not visible, but the clothing is the same: dark hoodie, baseball cap. Kiana Wells' body was found the morning of October 27th. A security guard from a neighboring facility, a man named Clarence Walker, was driving past the property around 8:30 a.m. and noticed a white Tesla parked between containers. The gate was open. It seemed strange. Clarence entered the property, walked to the car, looked in the window, and saw the body in the driver's seat. Kiana Wells was dead. 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Close range. Blood on the dashboard, on the steering wheel, on the windshield. The car's interior was in disarray. Glove compartment open. Contents spilled on the floor. Seats moved. Someone had been searching for something. Or pretending to search. Police arrived within 12 minutes. Crime scene techs within an hour. The lead detective assigned to the case was Terrence Holmes, 41 years old, 15 years with mobile police, specialization, homicides. His partner, Layla Price, 34 years old, was younger but sharp with a talent for working with victims' families. At the crime scene, Holmes found one shell casing, 9mm. It was lying under the passenger seat. The second casing was never found. Either the killer took it or it flew out the window. But one casing was enough, because casings leave traces. Unique scratches left by the extractor and firing pin. A ballistic fingerprint. Now they needed to find the weapon and the person who pulled the trigger. October 27th, 2 p.m. Detective Price arrived at Kiana's parents' house. Marcus and Shonda Wells lived in a small house on Azalea Road, 15 minutes from where their daughter was killed. Price delivered the news. The mother collapsed on the floor. The father just sat staring at the wall, unable to speak. 20 minutes later, when the shock subsided slightly, Price began asking questions. Did Kiana have enemies? Problems at work? Ex-boyfriends who might have threatened her? Shonda shook her head at every question. Kiana was a good girl. No problems. No enemies. And then Marcus said, she had a boyfriend. Price took out her notebook. Do you know his name? Shonda shook her head. Kiana never said. Said it was serious, but didn't want to jinx it. Promised to introduce them at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was a month away. Kiana wouldn't live 4 weeks to see it. Price asked if they knew about the pregnancy. Shonda went pale. No, they didn't know. The detective showed them the Instagram recording. The video filmed 4 hours before the murder. Shonda watched, crying. Marcus left the room. He couldn't bear it. The first suspect was Tremaine Jackson, 28 years old, Kiana's ex-boyfriend. They dated 2 years ago, broke up badly. Tremaine had a criminal history, burglary in 2019, aggravated assault in 2021. He served 2 years in Mobile County Jail. Released in March 2023. Holmes found his address and brought him in for questioning on October 28th. Tremaine was calm. Said yes, they dated. That they split amicably. That he hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Holmes asked where he was the night of October 26th. Tremaine said he worked the night shift at the Amazon warehouse on Theodore Dawes Road. Holmes checked. Alibi confirmed. Tremaine worked a full shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Dozens of witnesses. Cameras on every corner. He was released. Then detectives interviewed Kiana's neighbors. The elderly couple downstairs, Dorothy and Walter Richardson, told about the argument they heard the evening of the 26th. A woman's voice, screaming, but they didn't hear a male voice. Dorothy said Kiana seemed to be talking on the phone. Other neighbors confirmed they'd seen Kiana with a man several times over recent months. Tall, black, athletic build, but no one knew his name, and no one saw his car or license plates. Dead end. Holmes and Price checked Kiana's phone records. There were dozens of calls to one number over the past 3 months. The number was registered to a prepaid SIM card. No name, no address. Detectives tried to track the phone, but it had been turned off since October 27th. Whoever owned that number knew they needed to get rid of the phone. By mid-November, the case had stalled. No suspects, no weapon, no witnesses. The footage from the facility camera showed a man in black, but his face was hidden and the recording quality was too poor for identification. Police tried to track his route using surveillance cameras on neighboring streets, but the trail went cold 3 blocks from the facility. The Kiana Wells case went cold. Another unsolved murder in a city with a 60% clearance rate. Kiana's parents begged police not to give up on the investigation, held press conferences, offered a $10,000 reward for information. But months passed, and there were no calls. And then on April 23, 2025, exactly 6 months after the murder, an anonymous caller contacted police. The call came in at 4:37 p.m. The dispatcher recorded it. Male voice. Young. Nervous. He said he knew who killed Kiana Wells. That the girl had been seen at the fire station on Dauphin Island Parkway several times in September and October. That she came to see one of the firefighters. That his name was Darius Crawford. That Darius yelled at her in the parking lot the day before the murder. That the caller's conscience was eating at him. That he should have said something sooner. Then the call ended. Detective Holmes listened to the recording 3 times. Then opened the case file and started digging. Darius Crawford, 27 years old. Married. 1 child. Firefighter at Fire Station 11 since 2020. No criminal history. Not a single mention in police databases. Holmes contacted the fire chief and requested Darius's information. Then requested surveillance footage from September and October 2024. On the recording from October 24th, 2:16 p.m., detectives saw a white Tesla in the fire station parking lot. Saw Darius Crawford exit the building and approach the car. Talk to someone inside. Then abruptly turn and walk away. The car sits for a few more minutes, then drives off. The license plate was clearly visible. It was Kiana Wells' car. Holmes called Darius in for questioning on April 26, 2025. Darius came with a lawyer. Was calm, polite. Holmes showed him a photo of Kiana. Asked if he knew her. Darius shook his head. Said he'd never seen her. Holmes showed the video from the fire station parking lot. Darius watched, then changed his story. Said yes, maybe that girl came by once. That she was asking for directions. That he helped her and left. Nothing special. Holmes asked where he was the night of October 26, 2024. Darius said he was home, with his wife and daughter. Holmes wrote this down. Asked if anyone could confirm. Darius said his mother was visiting that evening. Holmes took her name and contact. They let Darius go, but Holmes already didn't believe a single word he said. Detectives checked the alibi. Darius's mother, Verlene Crawford, confirmed she was at her son's house the evening of October 26th, that they had dinner together, that Darius didn't leave the house all night. But Holmes saw how she hesitated when answering, how she avoided eye contact. He knew she was lying, but there was no way to prove it. Holmes requested Darius's phone geolocation records for October 26th, and that's when the case broke wide open. Darius's phone pinged cell towers in his home neighborhood until 10:30 p.m. Then at 10:54 p.m., a ping from a tower near the Shell gas station on Government Street. At 11:19 p.m., a ping from a tower on Interstate 10 heading east. At 11:52 p.m., a ping from a tower near Shelton Beach Road, right next to the facility where Kiana's body was found. Then at 12:14 a.m. the phone was turned off. It turned back on at 1:38 a.m., back in Darius's home neighborhood. Holmes called Darius in for a second interview on May 2, 2025. This time Darius sat pale, sweating. Lawyer beside him. Holmes laid the geolocation printout in front of him. Asked if he could explain why his phone was in the area of the murder the night Kiana Wells died. Darius was silent for a minute, then spoke. Said okay, yes he knew Kiana, that they'd been seeing each other for a few months, that it was a mistake, that he tried to break it off, but she wouldn't let go, that on the night of October 26th, she begged him to meet, that he drove over to talk, that they met at the gas station, talked in her car, that she was upset, crying, but eventually agreed it was over, that he got out of the car and drove home. That was the last time he saw her alive. Holmes asked about the pregnancy. Darius went even paler, said he didn't know, that she didn't tell him anything. Holmes didn't believe it. Showed him the Instagram video. The same video where Kiana says she told her boyfriend about the pregnancy, that he wanted her to get an abortion. Darius stared at the screen and said nothing. The lawyer asked for a break. They left the room. Came back 20 minutes later. Darius said he wanted his lawyer and wouldn't answer further questions. He was released. But Holmes knew it was just a matter of time. On May 7th, detectives obtained a search warrant for Darius Crawford's house. They arrived at 6 a.m. Janelle Crawford opened the door in a robe, frightened. Little Alea peeked out from behind her leg. Darius was in the bedroom. He didn't resist, just watched as the forensics team turned his house upside down. In the basement, in a locked metal cabinet, they found a gun. Glock 19, 9mm. The magazine was missing 2 rounds. Holmes sent the weapon for ballistics testing. On May 12th, the results came in. The shell casing found in Kiana Wells' car was fired from the Glock 19 registered to Darius Crawford. 100% match. No doubt. On May 13th, 2025, at 7 p.m., Detectives Holmes and Price arrested Darius Crawford on charges of first-degree murder. In the interrogation after arrest, Darius was silent for 2 hours, then asked the lawyer to leave, said he wanted to talk, and told them everything. He said he loved Kiana, that he didn't want this to happen, that he just panicked, that when she told him about the pregnancy, he realized his life was falling apart, that his wife would find out, that he'd lose his daughter, his job, his reputation, everything, that he told Kiana to get an abortion, but she refused, that after her visit to work he realized she wasn't going to back down. She was going to tell everything, that he had no choice. On the night of October 26th, he called her, apologized, said he wanted to talk everything through calmly. She believed him, came to pick him up at the gas station. He got in the car with a gun in his pocket. told her to drive to the facility, a place where they'd met before. Quiet, secluded. She drove. They parked between containers. Kiana started talking about the future, about how they would raise the child, that everything would be okay. Darius listened, then pulled out the gun. He told detectives he only wanted to scare her, make her promise she wouldn't tell anyone. But Kiana started screaming, reaching for the door, trying to get out of the car. And he fired. Once. Then again. She fell onto the steering wheel. Darius sat next to the body for a minute. Two. Couldn't move. Then started searching for the second shell casing. Found one under the seat, but couldn't find the second in the dark. Wiped the steering wheel. Wiped the door handles. Got out of the car and walked away on foot through the industrial area. Threw the phone in a canal 3 miles from the facility. Got home at 2 a.m. His wife was asleep. He lay down next to her and didn't sleep until dawn. Darius Crawford was charged with first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances. The trial began in August 2025. The prosecutor presented all the evidence: geolocation, ballistics, surveillance video, confession. The defense tried to argue it was involuntary manslaughter, that Darius didn't plan to kill Kiana, that the gun went off accidentally during a struggle. The jury didn't believe it. On September 14, 2025, they delivered a verdict: guilty. Darius Crawford was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Devin Turner, the colleague who made the anonymous call, later gave an interview to the local newspaper. He said his conscience had been eating at him for 6 months, that he saw Kiana that day, saw how Darius treated her, that when he saw the news about the murder, he immediately thought of Darius. But he was afraid of losing his job, afraid he was wrong, afraid of destroying a colleague's life without proof. But after 6 months, he couldn't stay silent. Kiana's parents, Marcus and Shonda Wells, attended every court session. After the sentencing, they gave a statement. Shonda said she forgave Darius, that her faith required forgiveness, but she would never forget. Marcus said less, just said their daughter wanted to be a mother, that she loved the child she was carrying, and that Darius Crawford took not just her life, but the future she so desperately wanted. Darius Crawford is now at Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. Janelle Crawford filed for divorce a month after the arrest. She moved with her daughter to another state, changed their last name. Kiana Wells' story is a story about trust that was betrayed, about a woman who wanted love and got a bullet, about a system that could have saved her but didn't. The officers who saw her crying in that car and walked away continue to serve, but they've changed. They stay longer now, ask more questions, because they know that 20 minutes was all the time they had to change the outcome of that night, and they let it slip away. The Instagram live stream is still available. For minutes and 17 seconds of a final cry for help that no one heard loud enough. Thousands watched it after her death, left comments, said she should have driven away, should have called the police, should have known better. But Kiana Wells was a pregnant, scared, lonely woman who believed the man she loved was still capable of good. And that belief killed her. Sometimes the most dangerous place isn't a dark street. Sometimes it's the seat of a car with someone who says they love you and reaches for a gun.